All right, Don, it's all you. What are we talking about tonight?
Okay, like everybody's finding out, the weather this year is really bad. If people's making queens, we're not getting very high returns. And I think because we've had so much rain, so much cold, there's so much dragonflies and more predators out this year than I've seen in a long time. So I was going to talk about managing your hive a little bit better. This is the time of the year you need to get in your hive, and down in the brood chamber, you need to get the honey out right now. So if you've got two frames on the outside, one frame on each side that's full of honey, the best thing to do is get it out, put it up above. If you got any brood at all in it, let it hatch out. This is the time to change out foundation. If you're making queens, your frames, they should not have more drones on more than 4 frames in that hive, and you should be able to cover them with a dollar bill. A normal hive should have no more than 2 frames in there, a half a dollar bill, fold it in half. That should cover the drones. If you got more than that, then I suggest getting them out. And if your comb is more than 3 years old, or it's a dark chocolate color, one way to check that is put the date on it. 3 years, put new foundation in and do frame, 1 frame or 2 frames to the hive. Changing out that foundation is the biggest thing. And now is the time to get those new foundations going in there where they can get at least 2 cycles of brood in there, even 3 cycles of brood before winter gets here. Because your winter bees is what's going to take you through the winter into spring. And if you've got frames of honey in there, they're not going to produce no bees. And look at your frames carefully. Look at them straight on. They should be perfect hexagons in there. If they look elongated and it's down more than 3 inches where it's stretched out, you need to change the frames out. Now, if you don't worry about the honey so much, you can get a robbing box with a solid bottom and set a frame or 2 out in your bee yard and just let your bees rob it out, and you can reuse some of it. Now, if you got a third of a frame or a half of a frame or the lower half it's full of drones, a lot of times what we do is lay it on top of a lid and we take a knife and cut out the bad section. If there's a little bit of honey in there, we just let it out in the yard and let them clean it out and then melt it down. That's one way to do it, but you need to have extra boxes and remove the hive from the original stand and frame by frame go through it. Right now, all the way up into the middle of September, you're going to have to watch for queen cells. This is one crazy year, and it only takes 1 queen cell to lose a good, strong hive. So if you got a queen cell, you need to pull it out, make a split right then. Now, a hive that's fairly strong, we've got a lot of our hives that we shake from. They're almost on a regular basis have 1 frame with 1 single queen cell on it. That's just basically the ideal situation. You don't have to worry about cutting anything. Just transfer the frame into a medium or a deep 5-frame box. Shake 2 to 3 frames of bees in it. You can move it over 3 to 5 feet. If you shake 3 frames of bees in there, figure 2 frames is going to fly back to the parent hive. The nurse bees, or the ones that have not oriented, are going to stay with that nuke box. And that's a way to make your increases right now. And we was running 50 hives over there, and we made 5 splits. And we made it within like a half an hour, just going through and basic maintenance. When you pull the first frame out of the hive, when you first open the hive, I try to teach my students to slide all the frames to one side. Pull that first frame out and set it to the outside. Now, when you pick up that second frame, the next thing you should be doing is looking at the bottom board. If you see a lot of cuttings on there, wax cuttings and platelets, check them closely or just clean it out. You can, if you're running entrance reducers, take it out, scrape all that stuff out, or change that box out, whichever is easiest for you. Now, if you're going through the hive frame by frame and you're not checking the bottom, you could have wax moth in there, and the next thing you're going to have, they're little black specks. That's the wax moth eggs. If you don't get them out, it's usually within 7 to 10 days. You're going to be ate up with small hive beetles. And that's because of the way the weather's been running. It usually takes 5 to 7 days, and you can go back in that hive and you'll have a half inch of worms, maggots floating around the bottom underneath all that stuff. So that's one good tip to do, check it. Now, I'm going to take questions now on anything that you have pertaining to honey. If you've got 10 frame hives, try to get over to 8 frame. They're a lot easier on you. And take those outside frames. You don't want no honey in the bottom box. If you got 1 inch to 2 inches underneath that top bar on 5 frames, that's more than enough. You need brood down there. You don't need much honey down there. So maintain that, get that out. So if anybody's got questions, I'll try to answer your questions.
All right, we got Ernest up first. Go ahead, Ernest.
Yeah, Don, good evening.
Good evening.
It sounds like you've already answered my question.
Uh-oh.
I had a frame and it had queens on it. Matter of fact, there's 3 queen cells on.
Mm-hmm.
I moved it over into another nuke box, but I didn't do what you said, the shake the extra bees on, and I guess they must have been worker bees in there. It's kind of like a cool day, and
Right.
and I don't think it was nurse bees on it because I thought at least some of them would stay, but they abandoned it and went back, and I went out there, and that was 3 queens that I lost by doing that. So I guess I needed to shake more bees in there. Is that correct?
Right. What I try to do is I try to show students when they're out here in the yard what nurse bees look like and what your field bees look like. And you can actually look at a frame and you can see if you've got robber bees on that frame. Usually your robber bees are going to be real slick looking, greasy looking. They're getting out there stealing stuff. That's why they're so greasy looking. But until you get to recognize the bees, shake 3 frames in there. You know, put 1 frame that's got the bees with the queen cell, and then put 2 other frames with it. And then once you get used to what is nurse bees, you can get by with 1 frame.
Well, I moved today. I told you I put extra boxes on while I was away.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they'd filled up. So I just made kind of like a walk-away split. I just split them up and moved them, and then I'll see who has the queen come Monday.
The only trouble right now this year that I see doing walk-away splits is because if you got a 10-frame hive or an 8-frame hive and you split it about halfway, we're not having good results with queens coming back with all the predators. So that all them bees fly out, you could be losing 3 to 5 pounds of bees. So that's another reason to keep your splits to a minimum. That way, if they don't return, you're not losing that much. Another thing you can do is put 1 frame in there and shake an extra frame, wait about 10 to 15 minutes, then put a screen over them. Keep them for 24 hours or even 2 days.
That's what I was thinking, just close the thing up and make sure they stay there, because I haven't been very successful in moving them and keeping bees in there. I put a lot of bees in, or this time they even switched the hives around, so the bees had come back.
Close them up, be careful you don't, if you are in open sun, be sure you have a top vent like a hive top feeder and have screen wide enough that they can breathe or they'll overheat. And whenever you do a close up for 24 hours, 2 days or 3 days, make sure you've got a minimum of 1 inch of honey across underneath that top bar. Because with 3 frames of bees, they'll go through some honey. And if you don't have nothing in there, they're going to starve on you.
Okay. Well, I'm learning a lot more.
I've been doing this a long time, and every year I learn more and more. I mean, just no one knows everything.
Yeah, well, you certainly know a lot, and I certainly appreciate all the information you put out there. So
don't give me too big a head now.
Okay, that's all I have for now. I'll probably have more questions before the night's over.
Okay.
Donald, go ahead with yours.
Yeah, I did your queen making method where you cut your comb and all that, and I had 8 out of 10 actually make queen cells. Well, whenever I moved the queen cells over to my queen castle,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't keep any bees in there. I shook 2 frames of bees in there and off of the brood, but I left it on the same table that the original hive was on. Do you think they just like crawled back into the original hive?
They
or-
didn't crawl back in, more than likely they flew back in. One
Okay.
way to do that, I did those queen castles basically for people that have plastic frames and they can't cut cells out. And what we've done on demonstrations for those is we put 1 frame in each section. And then each section is divided over. You know, it's got a little cover, it goes over the frames. Then take
Right.
about 3 frames of bees, make sure you don't have the queen on it, and just shake them across the top, let them crawl down in there. Then cover them up, and then we use 1 inch or 1.5 inch square screens, and we put them across the holes with a thumbtack at the top. And we take our hive tool and tap it. That way you can leave them for 24 hours or 2 days, and all you have to do is come by with your finger, just push it up and then tap it with your hive tool again. Make sure it's firm, that it's not loose.
Uh-huh.
That seems to work good. It's just another tool that I put out there for backyard beekeepers that want to make a few queens.
Right.
It works good if you get all them little details and follow them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Dawn, last week I told you that I found a frame that had 3 queen cells on it, and we talked about cutting those off carefully, and then I decided why take a chance of damaging them, so I just moved the whole frame.
Mhm.
And what I did is I made a split. I put 3 frames in there. There was some honey, there was a little bit of brood, and then there was the frame that the 3 cells were on. In one day, I noticed that one of the cells had a hole chewed in the side.
You got a queen
So-
walking in there already.
And the other 2 cells have been fine for, I don't know, maybe 5 days, and I don't know what day they were capped, so I've been keeping an eye on it for them to hatch out. And I just looked this morning before we got on here, and now I see all 3 cells, the other 2 cells have also been chewed. There's no exit in the bottom. You know, it looks like the bees have taken them down, is what it looks like to me. I guess I'll have to look closer and see if there's actually a queen in there.
Open the box up and listen. If it's quiet, you more than likely have a queen in there. Now, if the weather got real hot on you or got real cold and those cells chilled, the bees will cut them down. But normally a hole cut in the side is usually got a queen that's walking in there. You could have a virgin queen walking in there. And if you've
Yeah.
got more than 1 hive, don't discount a queen coming out of 1 hive and going into another one.
Yeah, well, I'm not having the problem that these other people are saying with the bees taking off. When I put them in the nuke box, then I moved it, I don't know, I probably moved it 75 feet away from the original location, and they're staying right there. They look like they're doing well. They're storing a lot of nectar. I don't see any babies or any new eggs or larvae in there yet. Guess I'll have to look and see if there's actually a queen in there.
If you don't see any eggs in there in another 3 to 4 days, just drop another frame from another hive in there, pull it out of the middle of one of your hives. That way you don't have to check it real close. Shake the bees off, make sure you don't have a queen on it, and set that frame in your nuke. If there's no queen in there, or you got a bad queen or a damaged queen, they'll make queen cells right away.
Okay, all right. Other than that, everything seems to be going well. My hives are really loaded. I had a friend here the other day who is very interested in getting into the bees, so I gave him a pretty in-depth sharing of my information, and then I went through the hives and took the top brood box off and showed him what goes on in the bottom. And those bottom boxes are really loaded, so and they are starting to build out in the second box. So when I went through them with him last Wednesday, I didn't see any queen cells. I was looking for queen cells, and I didn't see any in the original 3 hives. So hopefully they'll just continue doing what they do, move up to the second box and keep going. But so far, everything looks like it's going well.
Good.
Okay, I'll let someone else ask a question. Thank you.
Okay.
Chris Peppert, go ahead.
Hey, Dawn. Hey, I got a hive that's 3 boxes high, all medium frames, 8 frame. And I think you kind of answered my question. I got nothing but nectar in there, very little brood, no larvae, and 0 eggs. Should I pull all the frames out of the bottom box
Well,
and replace them?
what are you running? What combinations are you running? You running 1 deep, 2 deeps? You running mediums, deeps?
3 mediums.
What's the hive look like? 3 deeps?
3 mediums.
3 mediums? What
Yes.
I would do is get another box with brand new foundation in it, another box of medium. Go to your second box and just take between the second box and your bottom box and checkerboard them. Every other one, put it a new piece of foundation in. That way
Okay.
they can start moving it up. Because if you don't give them a place to lay, you know,
They won't lay. They won't lay.
no.
There's a queen
Right
in
now-
there. They're quiet. They're calm. Like I
That's
said,
what's
there's just
happening
nowhere for
at
to lay.
different locations. You know, you can have one location 5 miles from one location, be down the road 3 miles on another one. One will be exceptionally well, and the other one might be starving. And what we're finding on a couple of our yards is as soon as a bee hatches, they're backfilling right then with honey. So
Yeah.
you have to either checkerboard or pull out a couple frames. Now, we were shaking packages today, and we had 3 students over there, and right away they noticed we had queen excluders on the boxes. We was running double deeps with supers on. And they said, well, I thought you was against the queen excluders. And I said, well, let me show you something. We shake 15 packages in less than 30 minutes. What I did was I went along and I smoked the entrance. All the bees go up into the honey super. And Stephen come along, we had 2 students. One was holding the shaking box and the other one was capping them. And as fast as he could pull frames out, we was filling boxes up. So it's a tool, but as far as a queen excluder, I would not run them year round. Most people that's trying to build numbers up or make honey, queen excluder is not doing your thing. It's got its place in beekeeping. And for I use it for is a student doesn't have to waste time looking for the queen. Because if we take students to a bee yard to shake bees, we have to shake 50, 100 packages an hour. We can't stay there all day, 30 minutes on one hive. We have to keep moving. So it's a tool that you use for what it's designed for. It's an insurance policy.
Okay, so I was just in that hive today. I had it all torn down.
Mhm.
Go back in it tomorrow and put the 4th box in.
Put the other box in it, but just keep one box. And when you put one frame, you'll have honey and brood. The one right above it should be a new frame with new wax. The one next to it, every other one up and down. You don't want to have 2 empty straight up and down.
Can I pull the frames that are in there that are just full of nectar and set them aside, or put them in a robin box?
You can do that, but if you want honey, if they're capped,
I don't.
you don't want the honey?
I'm just trying to build the hive up for winter.
You can set them out. I mean, how many hives you got, depends on, whether you're going to lose. You just got 1,
2.
2?
Yes, sir.
You might have more robin going on than you can control. Put entrances reducers in there.
They're on there.
Or you can cut it out and run it through a strainer and just take the stuff that's in the strainer and set it out and let them rob that. And then take the honey and feed it directly through a hive top feeder.
So it's a lot of nectar, not very much capped at all. It's just open cells that have nectar.
We've got honey sitting in a lot of our yards right now. We wanted to pull it 3 weeks ago, but with so much rain, they're only capping down anywhere from 2 to 3 inches, and the bottom half is not, evaporated out capped. So a lot of times on honey, doesn't have to be totally capped. Take the frame sideways and just give it a couple little shakes and look at the frames. If it's not shaken out, it's usually dry enough you could extract it. If it's half capped, we'll have white cappings down at least halfway, sometimes
it's coming out.
3/4. Yeah.
It's
If it's
falling
coming
out,
out, it's way too wet. Don't do that unless you're going to feed it right away.
I could do that. I could try to save it.
I'd feed it
so
back,
just-
and that way let them build brood with it.
Use strips or use a foundation for the new
Uh,
frames?
I think doing the full sheets right now in mediums, that's what I'm doing. Now the deeps, we are dropping where they've got a lot of drone comb. We're putting that to the top box and letting the drones and the honey get capped. And we're just putting starter strips in. That way they're gonna consume a little bit more honey to draw that wax, and that helps eliminate that honey problem.
Okay, the hive is full of bees. I mean, it's packed with bees,
Yeah,
but they're eventually gonna start dissipating here.
yeah, well, they get old and they ain't gonna live long.
Right.
So that's
All right,
why
very
I try to do a little thing on getting those boxes in shape right now by putting new comb in it and getting them things, you know, where they have worker cells, not drones.
Right. I did have a frame. The whole one back side was all drone.
Yeah,
That's all I had in there.
well, that one now, I would set it out and let them rob it out. And then if you got some fire ants, what I do is I just set the drone, or if you got chickens like them.
Yeah.
I set them on a fire ant hill and they'll eat the protein. They won't bother your wax. And then I just melt the wax down.
We've been real lucky here with the rain because we're actually in a little bit of a drought right now. So
We've had way too
Pretty good
much.
this
It's been like 3 inches in 1 week.
is that right?
And we're running 20, 25 degrees colder than what we're supposed to be.
It's 89 degrees today. It's gonna be 90
Yeah, we
tomorrow.
finally got up about 85 here.
Okay. All right. Thanks again.
Joseph Millwood, go ahead.
What on doing your splits? How late? What's the latest you want to be making these splits to be able to get them ready for winter?
That would depend on your ability. I make my split. I take most of my 8-frame stuff and I break it down into 2 to 3, sometimes 4, 5-frame splits. So I run 5-frame nukes through the winter and I have a lot better luck than full hives.
What's the latest that you? How long do they have to have to prepare for winter once you make a new split?
I'm making my split. I'm in North Georgia, just below the mountains, and I make mine in September.
I'm in what they call the isothermal belt in western North Carolina, so we're probably not too far behind you on being able to do that.
You know, if you're worried about it, make a little bit heavier split. But if you don't have drones, don't try to make splits. You've got to have drones to make with queens. So make sure you got your drones.
Right. Okay. All righty. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Patricia, go ahead. Where'd she go? Pat, where are you? I think she's got her husband there.
Her husband's sitting in for her.
Where's Pat?
She's got her grandchildren here, so she's occupied.
All right, we'll come back.
I'm the designated listener.
All right. Let's see, we got Paul, go ahead.
Hey Don, how you doing?
Hey, okay.
I think I finally got initiated. I finally got hit in the lip yesterday.
Uh-oh.
But any case, 2 of my hives were queenless. So 2 weeks ago, I took one frame out from one of my stronger hives and put it in one hive. And that hive, I have a queen in there. The other hive, they didn't take the frame and make any queen cells out of.
The frame that they didn't make any queen cells, where did you get the frame from? An outside or towards the middle?
No, it was towards the middle.
As long as you had young larvae in there, you know, unless it was a frame with mostly cat brood and all older larvae, they won't make cells. They got to have young stuff.
All right. Well, anyway, you know, I went and ordered 2 queens, and I put a queen in there. And I tell you, you know, the hive was loud. I finally understand what you mean by that. But, you know, I posted the video up on the Facebook page, and it just seemed like they were going after that queen, you know, like they wanted to sting her.
How did you put it in?
And
With
I
the
tell you-
screen face down, or did you just direct release?
No, screen face down.
Well, you could
But
have
I,
another
I
queen
did
in there. They don't usually, if you're bid queenless, for 24 hours and you go to put another queen in there, they won't act like they're trying to kill it.
Yeah. Well, I just laid it on top of the frames just to check, and I tell you that, I was able to brush them off with no problem, but it just looked like, they were trying to get the hull, like,
Was they,
I don't know.
Was they straight or was they like doubled over, like they had the stinger trying to go through the cage?
One or
Just
two
sitting on
bees.
top?
No, one or two bees, it looked like, they were hunched over trying to get in, try to sting through the cage. But I waited a while, I let the hive calm down, and then I went back and I put it in anyway, and I just wanted to see, I'll see what happens.
Sometimes when you put a queening like that, the biggest problem people have is they over smoke a hive. They get the bees all riled up before they put a queening there, and sometimes that happens. Now you can put a drop or 2 drops of sugar water on the screen and rub it a little bit with your fingers, and then take a spray bottle and mist a frame or 2 of bees with the same sugar water, or put a drop of vanilla in there, something to make a uniform scent. Then they usually accept it. But when you lay a queen up there and they act like they're trying to sting it, you got a virgin queen in there, you got something else in there, because they have no hope of survival until they put that queen in there. The only way they're going to defend that hive is if there's a queen in there. Then they start to attack the other queen coming in.
Yeah, because I didn't see any eggs in there. There were no new, there was some old brood in there, and that was about it. Some
Did you
old
go
cat
through
brood.
frame by frame and check it?
I went frame to frame, and I even checked it twice, and I could not find no queen in there. But I'm going to see what happens in a couple of days and see if they release her, and then, hopefully in a week or 2 I'll have some cat brood in there.
If you run across that same problem again, the best thing to do is leave the cork in both ends, put the queen cage between 2 frames, leave it for 24 hours. Then don't even use any smoke. Just open the hive gently and pull the cage out. If those bees are on the bottom of that cage, are they feeding the queen and feeding the workers, usually you don't have a problem. But if they're actually aggressive at that point, then you have a queen for sure in there. If you don't have them being real aggressive, then pull the cork out of that candy end and just let them release her naturally.
Yeah. Well, I'll try that the next time if need be. But another thing I noticed on 2 of the hives, 2 of my pretty strong hives, and these were started from packages at the end of April. It's packed with brood, but I don't have any honey on the top. There's no, it's just straight brood, full frames of brood. Should I keep feeding them?
If there's no honey in there and they're not storing it, they're consuming it to either draw wax or feed the young bees. Is it in a single box or is it in a double box?
Yep, that's what I'm figuring. I'm figuring they're using all of that to draw out the comb.
Yeah, they're probably using a lot to draw a new comb out, especially on a package. If you put a package in new hive, it's around 25 to 35 pounds to get it up and running on its own.
All right, so I'm gonna keep feeding them then.
Yeah.
Even though our honey flow is probably just starting here now.
How
So
much sugar have you put on them?
I have 5 hives and I put on 200 pounds of sugar already.
For 3 hives?
For 5.
For 5? That's not really that much. That's
Yeah.
not within the parameters that I just said, 25 to 35 pounds per hive, a new foundation. It takes a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit less if you're feeding honey to them. So,
All right.
that's,
Yes, I'll keep
if you're
feeding.
using entrance reducers or entrance feeders, you're not getting the amount of feed in the hive that you should. Because during the night, if it's empty, they're dripping out in the front.
Yeah, no, I'm using top top feeders. But it's just, you know, we had nothing but rain up here up in the north, and you know, I guess the bees, they haven't been able really to get out. So that's another reason I should just keep feeding them.
Yeah, I would keep feeding them. They'll store what they're not going to eat.
That'll do it, Paul?
Yeah. All right. Good enough. Thanks.
Okay. Jed, go ahead.
Hey, Don. This is
Hey.
Ed, North Carolina. How are you?
Okay.
Now speak up a little bit, Jed.
Okay, let me get a little closer. I bought a few packages from Todd Prince
Mhm.
in the spring, and they're doing pretty well. I've made several splits and been raising queens and having real good luck and just following your videos and getting on this chat and listening. And I don't know what to do. I've got about 78 hives now, and I sold 6. I really made a big mistake. I had 2 ready to go. They were, oh man, they were just absolutely busting the seams, and my guys are going to come and pick them up. And I put a screen over the entrance and I set them in the shade. And
They overheated.
I'm sorry?
And they overheated.
Yep. Oh man, it was awful. But anyway, I've been contemplating putting on a website and trying to get the word out to sell some of these. They're just really booming, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm going to do this winter if I have to have 78 hives going through the winter. But man, it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, that's one thing. By watching the videos, you can pick up a lot, but learning to sell those nukes, if you have too many bees in there, and then a customer picks them up, if they're packed with bees, if they got a 6 to 8 hour drive, they're going to overheat. So you don't get them like you're raising them out in the backyard. You should have 2 to 3 frames of brood in there, some honey and some pollen. And you should have bees covering all the frames. But if they're jam-packed, they're going to be overheated in no time, especially if you cover them up. And whenever you sell a nuke, you never cover it up. You leave it open, let the bees fly, and when the customer comes, point out the queen, show them the brood, and that's the way I sell my nukes here. And I tell them ahead of time before we open the box. If you don't like the pattern, if you don't like the queen, if you don't like anything about the box, you won't make me mad because I have extra boxes. I'll get him what he wants. But you have to get it across to your customer when they hit the road, them are their bees. If they overheat them, they drop them, they destroy them, they kill that queen. They seen it was alive and laying in that box. So you're going to get people as new beekeepers that get in there and they just roar through those hives, and you can kill a queen the first time they go in them. And then they come back on you. So if you're going to sell bees, you've got to have a policy to when you're selling these bees.
I had a 1-inch vent hole in the box, and then I put a screen over the front. I just took the reducer out and put a screen over the front and set them in the shade. But there were so many bees in there that they couldn't get. I guess they were down trying to get oxygen. And when we opened them up, there wasn't a lot. There was like 3 or 4 crawling around. I felt so bad. I didn't know what to do. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just need to sell some bees. If you know anybody in North Carolina or Virginia that needs bees, I've got some really nice packages that I'd like to sell. But
Okay.
I just want to thank you for everything. It's been a blast, and I've had real good luck raising queens, although it's just, making splits, and they're coming back mated. It's just been really a great learning experience, and I just want to thank you for everything, Don.
Well, the common sense stuff that I put out there makes sense, and it doesn't cost you cents. And it's not like I'm trying to get you to buy my bees or buy a product that I'm selling. I'm trying to teach you just what you're doing. Make bees and make a living at it.
It's a lot of fun. Thanks.
Okay.
All righty. Robert White, go ahead.
Yeah, Don, I just bought a couple of packages there on the 24th of May, and I was just wondering, when should I be looking at a mite, at probably treating those, or when should I be a time frame that I should be checking for mites?
I'd be checking on a regular basis. Are they you put them on old comb or all brand new foundation?
It's all brand new foundation. I'm running 10 frames deeps with mediums, I bought 3 packages, installed them on the 24th of May.
Was they treated or raised on spot? Did you buy them from me?
No, I didn't get to buy them from you. I didn't get up with you at that time. I bought them from a dealer out of Kentucky. A big deal. It's supposed to be treated with oxalic acid.
Well, one thing you want to find out is, you know, who's doing it and everything. But a lot of times you can't trust what someone's telling you. You know, you have to go by what you hear other people. I would just take it at face value and treat them. Usually a package, you shouldn't have to treat it for at least a month. It depends, but you could have a package with absolutely no mites and somebody drives down the street moving bees, and you go in your hive the next day, you could have a lot of mites because they fly. They just move like that, crazy.
And you treat with oxalic acid vapor once a month and leave the queen in there, or do I need to pull the queen out?
There's no need to move the queen. Leave it in there.
Okay.
But main thing is run small cell foundation. That's the main thing. That helps keep the mite problem and everything down. You won't have to treat for trachea mites.
Okay, and I was going to ask Cal, what's the best way to treat for those, or not better treat, but let's just say
treat for what? Varroa mite or trachea mite?
Both the trach mites. What do you do just as a precaution? Is what I'm asking.
You wouldn't cut your leg off just because you think you might step on a nail to prevent gangrene.
Well, that's true.
Well, I have not treated for trachea mites since 1992. Once I went to small cell, it's impossible to have trachea mites because you have a smaller bee. The trachea is smaller. The trachea mite has stayed the same. So it doesn't get in all standard size bees, but a small cell bee, it's impossible.
Okay.
They can get varroa mites, but even then when you use small cell, that cuts your populations of your varroa mites way down. So you treat less often with that.
All right.
Okay. I would treat them, you know, you cannot over-treat them with oxalic acid. I would do it once a month, just a precaution. And then if you got drone comb in there, pop the caps off of at least 10, 12 of them and look at them. Pull them out with a toothpick.
Okay.
That's the best way to check for mites. I don't believe in a sugar shake or even an alcohol shake because 90% of the people, you tell them that, and next thing they call you up and say, the queen was in the alcohol. So, you know, you got to brush bees off, and a lot of people can't see through a veil. So those are things to consider.
Okay, and what acid do I need to get? Do I need to just go to get the wood bleach or just order the
oxalic acid is, you know, the same thing as wood bleach.
Same thing.
Same thing. They might want to call it, you know, 100% pure or something, but I buy a lot of my stuff right off of Amazon. I was buying it from a company out of South Carolina, and I think it was a chemical store, and they charge $25 for a hazmat fee. I can buy for $40 a 25-pound bag with no hazmat fee, shipped free to my house. So same thing.
All right.
Okay. Next up is John. Go ahead, John.
Hey, Don.
Hey.
Hey, I'd made a split today. I'd put 2 frames of brood in there and a queen cell. It's at least about a week old, I guess, the queen cell. Do you think that's enough for the split? Just
well,
I didn't
if you had a queen cell, why did you put frames of brood in there?
I just figured I needed the bees, I guess, for the split.
No, you basically that's why I'm trying to teach you to use minimal resources, because right now, if you get a cool night, we had 58, I think, yesterday or this morning, and the last few days has been 58, 59. And when you get to those temperatures, bees are going to cluster some. And when you put all that extra brood in there, when they cluster, they're going to cluster up around that queen cell. So you could lose a half a frame of brood from chill brood. Then next morning, you'll see white larvae being pulled out. If the queen cell is sealed, you only need a cup of bees. It'll be right around that. I use a frame of honey and shake a little extra bees in with it. They will stay around the queen cell. Now, when that queen cell hatches and she comes back, she's going to bring more bees with her. She's going to gather up a good force. And when you see her laying on that honey frame, then add 2 frames of brood. Then you build a strong nuke up real quick.
All right. So I basically just wasted a frame of brood pretty much.
If you don't get cold weather, you haven't. But if they hatch out and, you know, they don't come back, you've lost probably 3 pounds of bees, probably.
All right. And you said you winter in the 5 frames. I've got 3 5 frames and 6 10 frame deeps. Do you winter in the 5 frames, just a single or a double? Or
If you run a double 10 frame, you're going to have a higher loss than if you run 5 frame boxes, single story, because it's called heat loss. The bees have to eat more honey to create more heat, go through the winter. So that's why my numbers of losses is low. You run less bees, less. It's just like a 2-story house. If you live in a 2-story house in the wintertime and you don't use the rooms upstairs, common sense, you block the radiators off so they don't get heat up there. It holds the heat down. So if you're holding the heat down with a hive top feeder and, you know, they just don't eat as much honey. It's just common sense stuff.
and are you having to put them frames of honey in there? Or,
No,
just
if you,
dry sugar? Or-
no, if you pull your honey off and you make your splits in September, there's going to be enough honey in them frames. And then if you have a hive top feeder, if they get light, you can lift them up. They get real light, put some honey and don't dilute it. Feed honey right back to them. It takes a lot less honey to build them back up than it does a lot more sugar.
All right. And if you don't have the honey, what, just feed them the dry sugar?
Well, you could feed dry sugar, but if you don't have honey, I would feed them real good in the fall. Let them store that sugar water.
Yeah, I've been feeding them. I'm just going to keep feeding them.
Yeah. That's the smartest thing to do.
And I was wondering, what do you think about open feeding? I've got hive top feeders on most of them, but I've got a few. I didn't know about the just open feeding. What you thought?
Well, it depends on how many hives you have and, you know, what you want to consider losses. I've got 5-gallon bucket feeders out right now, and I'm open feeding, and they're barely touching it. They're doing a little bit in the morning. That's it. There's a lot of nectar coming in. When you open feed, you got to have entrance reducers on most of your hives, unless you can run no entrance reducers on an 8 frame that's good and strong. I have some of those in my yard here that we don't have entrance reducers in because we use those to boost up our nukes when we sell them.
All right, I have entrance reducers on all mine, but you think the hive top is better if I can get them all?
Yeah, if you can put hive top feeders on there, definitely, you know, you lose less losses as far as, you know, feeding all the neighbors' bees and all the wild bees. You confine most of that feed to your own bees.
All right, that's it, Don. Thanks.
Okay. Let's see, we got Ro. Go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I told you last week we had the problem with really bad robbing that we were having a hard time getting under control. It was a darker bee than our bees, so we could really easily tell the robbers from you know the bees that belonged. And we tried everything to get them under control. We put entrance reducers on so tight that they couldn't get in or out, and then just slowly open them up until they were just barely getting through. But
that's not all you can do.
Yeah, they really seem to not be putting up much of a fight. I don't know if they were just too weak after the first couple of days of trying to get them to stop or what. But we had one of them absconded, the one that we requeened the other day. She was laying in there, but she must have done it really early in the morning because it was fine. She actually had the least amount of robbing going on there. I mean, there was some fighting going on at the front door, but not much. And we checked on it about 8 in the morning, and they just managed to leave with just about all but 10 bees. I was shocked there wasn't even more nurse bees than that because there was brood. So she absconded. The other one was the mating. We had 2 hives. We had 2 5-frame hives and a mating nuke that had 2 queen cells in it.
Mhm.
And the mating nuke with the 2 queen cells, when we opened it up that same day to check, they had torn down the queen cells. I don't know if that was they did that in the mating nuke or if the robber bees did that, tore the queen cells down. I don't know why they would.
Usually on robber bees, they're not going to tear queen cells down, not unless you got a bunch of craziness going on there.
Yeah, it was a lot of. The mating nuke had the most robbers attracted to it, I guess, just because it was the smallest. And
Well, on a mating nuke, a lot of the mating nukes were running about a 3/4 hole, just a round hole in them, and
yeah,
it only takes 3-4 bees to guard them. But
Yeah,
I don't
like that.
understand your other hives why they're robbing it down unless you don't
I
have
don't-
a lot of bees flying every day, and the field bees is what got died, or they could have got into some pesticide and the population dropped on you.
Yeah, I don't. With the one hive has always been the strongest, the 1 5-frame hive, and the other one was never really that strong. It was okay, and I probably would have called it okay if it hadn't been for the strong hive to compare it to.
Yeah.
But it never really caught up. So what I did to fix it was I took the last hive we had, the 5-frame, that was still laying, and when I opened it up, it didn't really look like there was that much going wrong with it. Right after I talked to you that day, that last Saturday, there
Mhm.
was some fighting going on, but I mean, inside it looked like she was still laying. There was still brood. I saw maybe 2 hive beetles, but that was it. The next day, we went and opened it up, and I guess the robbers had just really gotten to them. Everything was uncapped, including the brood, and the brood was all pulled out. And I don't know what would have caused that to happen, but
Usually
everything.
when you get brood that's ripped open like that, you got a bunch of yellow jackets.
Yeah, it was just black. There were bees, and they weren't much bigger than our bees. They were slightly bigger than our bees, but they were darker colored. You know, they still had stripes, but they were
Yeah.
dark colored.
Bees
And-
normally don't do that. Not the only way I've seen bees do that is if they're starving to death, then they'll cannibalize the larva like that.
Yeah, they didn't really eat it. It didn't seem like it was just on the bottom board, for the most part. I guess they probably ate some of it, but mostly it was just pulled out. And all of the honey was uncapped. All the cappings were on the floor. We didn't really have any full frames of honey, but we had, the honey band that on all of it
Right.
was all uncapped. So what I did was I put blocks in to keep the frames from moving, and I put it in the car, drove it about 9 miles down the road, and opened it up here at my house, which is about 9 miles from where we had them, to get away from those other bees. And they seem to be doing real well as far as coming and going. There's a cotton field right across the river from me, and they seem to all be going directly across the river to the cotton field, and they're bringing back white pollen. But there is no laying going on. The queen is very obvious. She's a nice big fat queen, but she is not laying.
Until they get
And-
enough pollen in there and they get enough storage, she's not going to start laying.
Okay, so what I've kept I've got a feeder of real thick sugar syrup on there.
Mm-hmm.
What else can I do to build her up? I put what was the bees that were left in the mating nuke, I put back in there, and they seem to get along real well, accepting them, and so they're all I've got all my eggs in one basket now, I guess. But it's been 3 days, and she just has not started laying yet at all. There's
It'll take
everything.
more than 3 days. For a situation like that, usually going to take 7 to 10 days. You're going to see any kind of turnaround.
Okay.
Because usually whenever you have robbing going on like that and they rob out like that and you move it and the queen is not dead, it usually takes her about 3 days, 4 days before you're going to see the first egg. And she's not even going to do that unless you got any kind of honey stored in there. The only thing you can do is if you have some honey, squirt it in the frames. Honey usually boosts them up faster than what sugar does.
Okay, just put it in the cells.
Just take the frame out and turn it sideways and get a honey bear. It's got a little point on it, a little spout, and just spray some in it. And just hold it on the side because those cells are like 15-degree angle. It'll run down in the cells, and then when you stand the frame back up, it'll stay in there.
The other thing I wanted to ask about, we made back when we first got the packages, we made that a pollen substitute mix from the video, but the bees were not interested in it at all, so I just have it in a can in the cabinet. Should I try putting some of that in one of the frames to see if that would help?
If your hive is weak right now, I would not put a pollen substitute out there because
Okay.
a weak hive, all you're going to do is start raising a lot of beetles.
Okay. All right.
That's where they multiply.
Okay. I guess that's all my questions.
Okay.
There is no robbing going on here. I guess I've never really seen any honeybees around here, so hopefully they're alone now. And when I can get them built back up, I'll try to move them back to the bee yard. But I'll keep y'all posted. I don't know when she's
Okay.
gonna start laying. Hopefully soon, and that's where we're at. The 2 frames that were in the mating nuke, it was a medium mating nuke, but it had 2 frames drawn in it. I just put them in a big Ziploc in the freezer to use whenever I need to add drawn comb. Right now, I took 2 of the frames away from that 5 frame that she's not laying in because they're only half full of bees. I figured they could control the beetles better without so much real estate to worry with for right now, and I'll put those other 2 back when she starts laying.
Yeah,
Just
you can do that.
Okay, that's what I did. So
Okay.
I guess that's all I can do really. I'll put should I also just put the straight honey, or should I maybe add some of the brood builder
I would not put
oil
brood
to it?
builder in it. Nope, it's going to attract beetles. Weak hive,
Okay.
brood builder. It's got yeast in it, just like natural pollen. It's going to attract beetles.
No, I mean the oil, the natural, the essential oils. I shouldn't put any of that in the honey. Just put straight honey in the frame.
Straight honey. Straight honey.
Okay. All right. I'll let y'all know how that goes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Clay, go ahead.
Hey, I guess I'm the unloved member of your Facebook group, according to your host here. But anyway, I've been pretty active in there. I don't have a whole lot of time given my work schedule in order to join a bee club. So you guys pretty much have been my bee club. So.
Why do you feel like you're unloved? Have you been posting advertising in there?
No. Just a random comment that.
Oh no,
that was made.
We don't get on anybody unless they start doing advertising or get foul mouth or start cutting down on other beekeepers, because we're all here to learn.
Yeah, it was just kind of a joke.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, what I had some questions on. I'm fairly new. As you could tell from some of the posts, but what I'm trying to figure out, one is rendering wax that has had issues with it as far as like larvae and hive beetles and that sort of thing. And 2, the essential oils mixtures. In one of your videos on fogging, you mentioned that wintergreen could be spearmint could be substituted for wintergreen. And I was trying to find out where you found out what oils could be substituted for what, or did that just...
Wintergreen is far better, but sometimes people buy spearmint because it's a little cheaper. But as far as rendering wax, I've got a whole bunch of videos up on rendering wax. And even if it's got wax moth or small hive beetle damage, the quicker you melt it down, at least the first time, and put it through a strainer, the smell, a lot of that gunk goes out of it. And then when you do the second melt on your wax, it'll smell like just plain honey beeswax. It won't have no bad smells to it. The whole trick on rendering wax is when you put it in a large kettle, don't do more than 4 frames at a time. If you put too many frames in there, you don't get enough of the wax out. You got to be able to use your hive tool and press it against the screen. 4 frames seem to work the best. And when it starts to boil, just as you seems to see the boil, then stir it with a hive tool and then pour it. Don't let it keep boiling, because the longer it boils, it caramelizes the wax and it'll become a brown wax, and then it gets dark looking.
No, that doesn't sound good.
Everything's a learning thing. It's how we learn.
Don't burn it.
Well, if you're going to use it for foundation, it doesn't make a really big difference. Caramelized wax, the dark brown wax, it works just about as good as the light wax. But light wax, people will buy your light wax from cappings and stuff for cosmetic use. They render it for salves and lotions and stuff like that. So it brings a much higher price. But when you first start, you're going to use all your own wax.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying.
And don't store it on mothballs.
No. I'm trying to be as reasonable as possible with doing the essential oils and that sort of thing, to where I'm avoiding a lot of the chemicals.
Yeah.
Learned a lot of that from you. As far as the rendering wax, I just hadn't done that before, so I wanted to make sure. And also, could you explain a little bit on your method for splits as far as using the center frames out of hives in order to do the splits?
The best thing to do when you're making splits is wait for you have queen cells. If you have wood and wax, you can cut cells out if you have multiple cells. That way you can have one queen cell and shake some bees in it with a frame of honey. The more frames of brood you put in there, the higher risk you're going to lose more bees. Risk as least as possible to gain as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Next.
Joe May must have laryngitis. That's the quietest I've seen him in years.
Learned everything from you, Don.
Uh-oh.
All right. Next up is Dennis Crutchfield. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. I got a question you may have already answered. I live in north central Missouri. What's the chances of having a 5-frame nuke survive the winter here?
People do it in Nebraska.
Well, I've always had 10-frame, double deeps. And I will say this, I've watched every video of yours, and someone that says you can't split the hives and get the numbers, they're crazy. I can't keep up. I'll be over 100. I start off at 14.
Right.
Just,
That's why I do these chats, why I do the videos, to show you don't need those big splits. You can do small splits, build them up. I have people from one end of the country to the other doing exactly the same thing, making numbers. And as far as 10-frame stuff, I run 10-frame stuff probably 20, 25 years, and I switched to 8-frame. And then the last 5, 6 years, I overwinter more 5 frames than anything else with a lot less losses. A 10-frame hive will bust your back down, makes less product for you. But everybody has to go down that road and experience themselves.
I'm making 8-frame boxes. I just have about 130 of the 10-frame. I'm just trying to put use.
Put a divider down the middle and make 2-frame nukes out of them and use them that way. Go through the winter with them.
I may do that.
I mean, that's the simplest and most effective way. Don't cut the sides down. Take a router and put a 1/4-inch slot right down the center on each side. Put you a piece of paneling in and put a solid bottom, piece of 3/8 plywood, drill a hole in the front on one side and a hole in the back. Now you got 2 5-frame nukes. And then if you throw your hands up in the air and say, you don't like that idea, you can pull the divider out, knock the bottom off, and go back to your 10-frame stuff.
All right. I will try that then. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's all I got.
All right. Shane, go ahead.
Hey, Don, how you doing?
Okay.
Hey, I got those 3 packages from you guys, and 2 of the packages are doing really good. I added another 5-frame box to those, and they didn't seem to be drawing out combs nearly as quickly, and then when they did, it was from the bottom up instead of from the top down on the starter strips. Kind of wondering.
The moonshine, are you?
Only the best, man. No, it's sugar water, 3-to-1. But anyhow, I got the starter strips in there. But you know what I did the first time is I squirted sugar water on those plastic little strips, and I didn't do that on the second box. And I'm wondering if maybe that had something to do with it.
Well, I always used wood and wax. the way that we talked about those plastic strips, that was a way to get rid of all that plastic, cut them in strips, but you're going to have some kind of coating on them. You need to either wax them or, you know, have some way they're going to draw on it.
Okay. I think I figured that one out on my own. And then the other hive, it right from the word go, it wasn't nearly as strong. I did take a frame of brood out of the super strong hive, and I stuck it in there. And I was expecting them to start drawing more wax, but they're not. Kind of shocked about that. But we've had really, really poor weather here, so I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. But I have been, you know, they've never run out of feed. I keep feed on them all the time.
You got to have warm weather for them to draw wax, and you got to be feeding them.
Not in Michigan, so we haven't had the best weather for that.
Nope.
All right, that's pretty much it. Thanks.
Okay.
All righty. Jim Murray, go ahead.
Howdy, Mr. Don.
Hey, Jim.
How we doing?
Making
today?
lots of money out there, huh?
Oh, tons.
Yeah. Need a big wheelbarrow.
It just cost $3 million to make $1 million. Isn't that what you say?
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question about the propane fogger.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I bought one that you talked about on video the other night, and oxalic acid and alcohol. I guess Everclear grain alcohol is what recommended is.
Right. Steven's been doing that, and I haven't checked hives on it. I think he's done 2 treatments on it. And I think from what he was telling me, he's using 100 milliliters of Everclear and 30 grams of oxalic acid. And he's mixing those up, and then he's putting it in a fogger.
Well, I'm about to give it a shot. I got the fogger in, but I hadn't tried it yet.
The only thing I can see is that it's pretty fast. You can do the whole my whole yard in about 20 minutes. The vaporizer with the hand one, it just takes about 2 to 3 minutes. That's been done for years and years, and it's been a proven thing. This other method is just something new coming up, and I haven't seen the results down the road how it does. Steven's, been doing all the treatments on it. He's done all of our out yards twice already.
That's good. I've been seeing people, it's becoming more popular again rather than the mineral oil.
Well, the mineral oil is only like 30 to 40%, maybe 50% effective, and it's a very slow kill. It's a suffocation type kill to the mites, where oxalic acid is almost 100%. You got to have bees that got open caps. If they're capped, you have to retreat after the caps. They open up. But now this other method is supposed to be as good. My visual on it, I have not seen the results yet. I haven't lost any hives. I mean, we lost a few for swarm, and that's about it. But as far as treating, it looks like it'll work out, but I can't say for sure yet.
Well, I'm going to give it a try. I used to do one with mineral oil.
Right.
Mineral oil and wintergreen. What do you think about the wintergreen with the oxalic acid?
I wouldn't mix the two together. Sometimes you mix different chemicals together and you come up with a third ingredient you don't like.
Yeah, I had never thought about burning it. I know you used to do one with mineral oil and wintergreen, correct?
You can do wintergreen with the mineral oil. You can do thymol. You have to take your mineral oil and you have to get an old steel coffee can or a small pan and put it on an outdoor heater and bring it up to where you can just barely put your finger in it, and then put 2 tablespoons of oxalic acid in it and completely dissolve it. It has to be completely dissolved. And then put that in your fogger, and it's supposed to be pretty effective. And I have used it. It seems like it's pretty good, but the other way with the Everclear, it's a lot faster. I mean, it seems like that alcohol burns faster, and you don't have that big cloud of smoke that you normally do. Very little smoke.
I was wondering about vaporizing Everclear. I've done that in the past, but it hasn't come out well.
Well, the first thing I thought about is that's 190 proof. It's going to have a flamethrower.
Right.
But I was surprised it don't flame up, and it just has a light amount of gas, but you can smell it in the air if you're downwind. It'll knock your brains down.
That's a good thought then. I'm gonna try that. I'll get back with you on how it works. I'll see if I can do some before and after shake test.
Well, you could probably use about $3 worth of oxalic acid, and the most expensive thing is the Everclear. I think it's $22 a bottle.
Yes, sir.
The size he gets. So he says he's done about probably 300 hives with one bottle of Everclear. So
Okay.
cost per unit, per treatment is not much.
Yes, sir. Well, another question. I got people asking me about adding bees to weak hives.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've seen you shake bees, just shake bees into a package or shake bees in a hive. Can you mix them up like that and not have them fight too bad if you smoke them?
You've watched me do it here.
Yes, sir. I just got other people. I'm trying to confirm that. Make sure I didn't see
Well,
something wrong.
There's a lot of people that talk about putting newspaper and combining hives. And you've heard me tell their students, when you combine hives, you're doing one thing, you're backing up. And I've never combined a hive. You can lose 2 queens. You can add a bunch of bees to them, you know. You can descent all the bees to where they smell the same and add all you want to it.
Well, I was just talking about for nukes going out the door. I got some of the population and what I like to see.
Oh,
Shake
well,
bees in it.
that I would be very careful on a nuke going out the door. What I would do is spray your hive down with sugar water with a little bit of that vanilla, and then the bees you're going to add to it, get them a little bit heavier, you know, not soaked, but spray them a little bit more to where they're pretty well coated. And then you can dump them in the front and let them walk in. They do better if you let them walk in than if you just dump them in the hive.
Okay.
You remember me setting lids upside down in front of my hives and adding bees that way?
Yes, sir. That's how I had nurse bees, but I've never done it with the everybody.
Yeah, you could do it that way. And that way, if you do have any of the older bees, they'll have more of a tendency to fly off. And mostly the younger bees just walk on in.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you much, Don.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Joe May, go ahead.
Yeah, Don. On oxalic acid in the fogger, my YouTube channel had several comments. Guys had a lot of mite load and it's worked real well. And they've done alcohol washes and had 0 returns. I actually did an alcohol wash on mine last week. So I've treated them 3 times early in the spring and once a month. So I've treated them today. That's the 5th time. Alcohol wash turned up no mites, so it seemed to be working good. I give you a little hope on the queens coming back. The last 2 weeks it's picked up. They're running about 75% now on returns. So hopefully
That's probably because you're getting a little bit more sunshine. I noticed one of the yards, we're getting more sunshine the last 3 days. We'll get a few more that returning on a better, comeback.
Yeah, but so far, everything seems to be working on the fogger. I mean, I've checked them a couple times and not seen any, and no mites, and everything's looking good.
Good.
So that's all I got.
Okay.
Alrighty. We got time for a few more questions. Paul, go ahead.
Don, I don't know if this is going to be a stupid question, but I can't find the answer to this anywhere. On the inner cover, there's a shallow side and a deep side. Which side do you use?
There's only 2 sizes of bee frames, deeps and mediums. Anything else is obsolete.
No, but on the inner cover.
On a what? Inner cover?
On the inner cover.
Inner covers? We don't use inner covers.
But I'm just saying there's a shallow side and then there's like a deeper side.
Oh, on an inner cover? Totally don't use them. There's no purpose. We use a lid. If you put an inner cover on there, you're going to have ants, roaches, and hive beetles there. You've got a place for them to lay and build up right there. We threw all them inner covers away over 40 years ago. It's a product that out there that's useless. It's like a bee brush. You got a bee brush, guaranteed you're going to get stung.
Yeah. All right.
Saves you money.
I have just one other quick question. When I continue to feed the bees now, and I have some Honeybee Healthy, and I've been giving them that, every time I feed them. Do I have to keep feeding them that, or is just one treatment good enough with that?
That's a brood builder is what it is, basically. So if you're building hives up and you want to build them up strong, feed it. You run the risk, though, of hive beetle because it's got yeast in it.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, thanks.
Okay.
Joseph, go ahead.
Hey, if you can't sell the bees, what's the best way to make money? Making queen lure or pollen or what?
You can't sell the bees?
I had
What's the matter? Is your internet dead?
I had an agreement with a pollinator that was supposed to buy a bunch from me, and
that's the first
I
mistake.
got bees, and I can't sell them now.
You can't sell them.
Now, I can
Well,
probably
if you-
sell 15, 20 hives right now.
Where do you live?
Western North Carolina.
Put an ad on Craigslist. You'll have your phone ringing off the hook.
All right.
That's your best bet right there. Because I can't keep nukes here. I mean, I'm selling them day in and day out.
Yeah.
But don't deal with pollinators. First of all, they want something for nothing. They ain't gonna pay you nothing even when they get it.
I was going to use it. I was selling them to them at a discount. I was going to use it to build more boxes, but got to find somebody.
Does it cost you less to make bees and a nuke than it does for me?
Nope.
Well, then I can't discount them.
Yeah.
When I go buy sugar, they don't say because you're using so much, we'll give you a discount.
When you overwinter on the 5 frames, how much sugar do you typically have to put into them right before you go into winter? Is that something you got to keep a check on every month or something, or?
Keep an eye on them. Usually when the goldenrod starts, if the weather's decent, from the first time you see goldenrod, that honey flow alone is more than enough to go through the winter. But your bees got to be free of mites. You got to have places for them to make brood, not stretched out cells. Because if they're stretched out cells, that's why I talked about that tonight. If it's stretched out, there's only 2 options, a drone or store honey. They cannot put a worker in a stretched cell.
So you want to give them new foundation shortly before going into winter preparation?
Or have good foundation. Look at it. Look at it straight on. It should have good uniform hexagon cells. If they're elongated anyway, it's going to be a cell or it's going to be a drone. If you don't get worker buildup early, you don't go through the winter because you don't have population. The bees that you make in October and November are your bees for spring. The bees you're making right now are going to be dead by November.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let you get somebody else. I appreciate the info.
Mm-hmm.
All right. John, go ahead.
Hey, Don.
Hey.
I got my bees from Barnyard Bees in Chatsworth, Georgia. I think his name's David. Is that your stock?
No, I got to have a word with him. He kind of got me upset here. He had a big video on showing he bought a whole bunch of packages from me and using my name. He has to understand the name is trademarked. You can't say you're selling my stock if you haven't bought it from me.
Yeah, I bought my bees from him. I was just wondering that.
No. If you look on my webpage, my students that are legitimate students that's selling my stock is listed on my webpage. He's not listed on my webpage.
Yeah, I'd seen that. That's why I'd asked you. I'd looked at it the other day to try to find him, and I couldn't find it, so that's why I didn't know.
Maybe he doesn't understand he's treading on thin water.
Yeah, because I'd seen on his YouTube, I watched some of his YouTube videos too, and he'd been saying that he had the Fat Bee Man stock, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's an old saying, you give enough person enough rope, they hang themselves.
Yeah. All righty. Thank you, Don.
Okay.
All right. Last question is Ernest. Go ahead, Ernest.
Yeah, I have that frame that had the brood on it, and it got chilled. Can I put that back in, Don, and let them clean it up, or should it be better just to melt it down and?
If you've got a good strong hive, I would put it in a good strong hive and they'll clean it out, but don't put it in a weak hive. You're just adding more problems to your situation.
Okay, and another thing, a couple different hives we've had where we had a queen in there and laying, and then you go back again and there's no laying, there's no queen. And it's not, us killing them either, accidentally. It just.
Well, if the queens don't return on a mating flight, the populations just go to nothing right then. you have to catch them and then put another frame, let them make another cell, or find some cells and add a cell back to it and add some more bees to it.
You think they lay a little bit before they go out? Maybe
They
partially
can't-
mated or not?
No,
No?
that's just like, you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. There's no in between. And the
Mhm.
queen is either mated or she's not mated. So, if she's not mated, she's not going to lay. And if she's laying before she's mated, she's going to lay workers or drone layers.
Okay. Well, that's all I have.
Okay.
So I appreciate all you do there, Don. So it's really enjoyable getting to know you, and I learn a whole lot right here tonight.
Oh, good. Thank you. I think Heather wants to tell everybody about wearing skinny jeans.
Yeah, don't do that. Make sure you wear the appropriate clothing. Thick jeans, have your pants tucked in your boots, all that.
Okay, well, that'll call it a wrap for tonight.
Okay.
then.
Glad everybody showed up and hope to see everybody next week. Everybody have a good week.
All right, thanks.
See you
everyone.
next week. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Don, Mr. E, Heather, hi, skinny jeans. That